All right, and I think we are live. Yeah, so, all right, thank you for tuning in. Just before we start the session, we're just going to take over some general housekeeping items here. I'm just letting you know that this is a Teams live, so you can't use your audio, and nor can I see your video, but you could always send us a question in the Q&A, and either I or one of my colleagues will be able to answer that for you. Um, We'll be here. I'll be here till 3:30, so please feel free to ask after or during the presentation, and you can also reach us over our email. That's also linked in the announcement page. And there'll be more information about the contact and our websites and just general some more housekeeping at the very end of the presentation. And for those who can't make it or who can't stay for the entire thing, the video is recorded and will be up on our website at a later hour. So feel free to do what's best for you. So each week we've been exploring different locations, and this is our very last Explore session, and it covers the Global South. So the Global South is quite a diverse region. It's the multi-continent sort of region in our CIP here, and I'm Daniel, and I went to Boku in Vienna last year in the winter, and assisting me today is going to be another exchange student. Her name is Samantha, and maybe she could greet herself.
Hi, I'm Sam. I went away last fall to Ghana and I studied at the University of Ghana, and I'm in applied science.
Great. Perfect. Thank you, Sam, and thank you for joining me today. So our very first location today is going to be Argentina. That's located in South America, right on the very coast. And the city that's focused in Argentina is actually Buenos Aires. We'll cover that later here. The next location is going to be Barbados, which is an island just at the coast of the U.S. on the east coast. A beautiful island, also covered under one of our schools here. We have Trinidad, mostly Trinidad, but it's the island of Trinidad and Tobago. And then we also have the United States of America. We work with one school in the South, which is quite an interesting scenario for people who are interested to experience a similar but quite different lifestyle. And then we have Ghana, which is in Africa on the west coast. And Samantha will be talking more about Ghana because she went there last year. And then finally we have India, and India is quite a large country, and we have many schools that do work with them, and we'll continue to cover them and talk a little bit more about cultural India as well. So first we're going to explore Argentina. So in Argentina there's a few beautiful plazas, and one that comes to mind is the Plaza de Mayo, which is in the capital city of Buenos Aires, and it's kind of like a city center for the largest city in the country. It's also the home to beautiful mountains and national parks. And this is a picture taken of a glacier in a national park that I will not even try to pronounce. But it's one of the largest glaciers, and it's a huge tourist attraction. There's great transportation to this glacier as well, even though it's quite far from Buenos Aires. And then we have this location. This is the Iguazu Falls, and I don't know if you guys can recognize this exact falls, but it's actually a very famous scene from Indiana Jones. I can't recall which one, but that's the shooting location. Some cultural things from Argentina is that they are a huge fan of meat, and a lot of the cuisine is mostly based on barbecue and grilled products. And if you're not a huge fan of meat, then maybe Argentina would be an interesting place for you, because things like cattle and pork kind of dominate the cuisine there. Culture-wise, we all know about tango, and that obviously originated there and is now the official dance and one of the most popular extracurricular activities in Buenos Aires, if you might say. Next, we're going to jump into Barbados. Barbados is a small island, and it's basically just beaches on beaches. This is a picture of Carlisle Bay, yeah, however you take it, and is one of the biggest tourist attractions and is flooded with resorts and kind of entertainment for locals and tourists. And the capital of Barbados is Bridgetown, which is it's the capital city on one of the islands, and it's quite a bustling city, but it's also mostly tourist it's almost also a tourist infrastructure. The unique location of Barbados, being such a northern island, gives it a very interesting botanical and fauna species and diversity on the island. And one of the greatest examples that I've come to see is this botanical garden that you see before you, and it basically houses a lot of the plants that we see in the States, as well as many kind of plants that are also native to South America, which is fairly unusual. The local cuisine is mostly based on fish, and there's a lot of different kind of variations. So on the very left here, you see what they call cuckoo and flying fish, which is basically a dish that's a cucumber fish mixture, and it's supposed to be quite interesting, and it's a tomato base as well. So if you're interested in fish, then that's the place to go. Cutters is a fish sandwich, which is very popular to eat on beaches and shacks. And then what I found probably the most appetizing one of all is the pudding and sauce, which is a salad and fermentation of some sort of bean to create the pudding. So quite an interesting and unique combination. Next, we're going to go into Trinidad. Trinidad, much like Barbados, is full of beaches, and it's also much southern beaches, so the weather is quite moderate year-round. One of the good examples and very popular tourist beaches, but not flooded with resorts, is the Maracas Bay, which is a short drive from the town, and it's mostly a very natural and untouched beach. The history of Trinidad goes quite back, and you can visit that kind of history when you go to places like this. There's a skew of them there, and this is a monastery up in the hills, and it's also a huge tourist attraction, and it's a well-preserved museum now. So if you're interested in history, especially history of the Caribbean, this is a place for you. And there's also a lot of forest. This picture is actually taken from the island of Tobago, which is not Trinidad, but it's in the same kind of, it's the same country, so you can move quite freely between them. And that island is quite untouched and is a lot less populated. So if you're interested in nature, then that's the place to go. The food there is also quite interesting. They like sort of West Indian spices, and they have like the palau, which is like a rice dish, and then the bacon shark, which is a crab, and the bacon shark is a crab as a shark sandwich that's served on the beach, which is maybe not necessarily something that you'd find here. And the curried crab and dumplings is also quite an interesting mixture of heavily seasoned Indian-style crab and Caribbean-style breading. Now for the U.S., we're going to mostly focus on the south part of the U.S. because I think if you are interested in going down there, you're mostly going to be exposed to this kind of culture. So in that area, we have New Orleans, which is a cultural and musical hub. We also have Arizona, and I've just specifically focused on the desert scene here. And I think if you are interested in sort of traveling and doing lots of road trips and seeing nature, then the south of the U.S. is one of the most amazing places you could go. And then we have Austin, Texas, which is quite close to where the university is, and it's maybe a half hour, an hour flight away, but it's quite a decent drive and a nice drive as well. And Austin, Texas is a booming city, and it's actually one of the fastest growing economic hubs in the U.S. And the food that they're going to be focusing in the South is probably going to be full food, Southern barbecue, and crawfish. So mostly meat and very barbecue and rich flavors. And crawfish is quite isolated to a few states like Louisiana and Maine, which is not in the South, but they have that as well. And it's an awesome experience, and if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend to try a crawfish boil. Second to last, we will be exploring Ghana. So Ghana is also very rich in natural resources as well as beaches, and one example that I've got here is the Cocoon National Park. Also a huge tourist attraction. I'm sure Samantha could discuss it in a little bit further down. Just on the coast, we have there's a museum and UNESCO site of Cape Coast Castle, which is a preserved castle from some colonial time. And then we have one of the famous beaches of Ghana, which attracts tourists from many places around the world, called Lambadi Beach. And I'm sure Samantha could expand on this when we get to the further discussions. Some of the food there is quite unique. African cuisine is unique in general, and especially in Ghana, they have very unique dishes. They have a lot of rice bases, and as you see on the left and right. But their main, from what I understand, their main dish is the way they cook tilapia, which maybe Samantha could expand on as well. So I'm just going to finish India, and then we will get back to Ghana and see what Samantha has to say. So India is, like I said, is huge, and there's many different universities, and we're going to discuss them a little bit further down. And depending on where you want to be in India, you have that choice. So India, I've tried to get various locations. We've gone to Taj Mahal, one of the famous dynasty buildings, the Amber Palace, and the Hawa Malaha Castle, which is also in the same city as the Amber Palace. And some of the food is very rich, and I'm sure you've probably had Indian food there, but from what I understand of people who have gone to India, the food that they try there is not even comparable to the Indian cuisine we have here. So if you're interested in Indian cuisine, you have to go there to get the real deal. Some of the things is tandoori, vindaloo, and mali kofta, all three amazing dishes, and will satisfy. And if you're vegetarian as well, there's many vegetarian options for you in India. So study abroad, and what does study abroad entail? So there's different languages that you have to understand, and each country has sort of different requirements. I've highlighted them here, and Argentina does have a Spanish requirement, which does require you to take a Spanish course in Guelph, because not all classes are offered in English. Barbados, Trinidad, and the US are all offered in English, and that is the native language that most people speak in that country as well. The official language of Ghana is English. However, there's hundreds of dialects, but education is done in English. In India, most of the education is done in English. The official language is Hindi in the south and in the southeast and west, but in the north it's Punjabi. But our education systems, I'm pretty sure for most programs, are taught in English. So actually, before we get to that, I'm just going to throw in Samantha, and I'm going to ask her a question of how she felt knowing just English in Ghana, and if English was enough to get by in Ghana, and whether any of the dialects were important.
So I'd say like everyone did know that we ran into did know some amount of English, and all of the teaching was done 100% in English, which was very important. I'd say sometimes your peers around you would like tell jokes in one of the local languages. So in the capital where I was, it was Twi. So they would tell jokes, everyone's laughing, you're left out. That's not always ideal, but it's one of those things you kind of just learn to like roll with it. But when we went to the market or even like other places around campus and people tried to speak to you, we did try to learn just like little things like please and thank you. And they like really appreciated it. Like when anyone like in the market would like hear a foreigner speaking Twi, they would just get like super excited, and they would try to teach you new words and which was super helpful and appreciated. And even if you drove like 2 hours north, like you might get to a new region where there's like another local language. So we would, if we were going away for the weekend or a few days, we would try to learn just even little things like please and thank you. And I'm just trying to think of other words. But yeah, just to like kind of as a thing of respect, like we're here where you are. And they did really appreciate it, which was nice. They did have like a local word for foreigner, which was obroni. So when you first got there, you like would hear that being yelled at you a lot, and you didn't really know what that meant, obviously. But the people at the university like explained to us it's not like a offensive term. It's not like demeaning or anything. It's just like how they're gonna describe you. They had a word for local person, which was obibini. So you just learned that's how they would refer to you in the market if they wanted your attention or something like that. But
wow, great! Wow, that's a great story. Thank you for that. Well, we'll get some more opinions on Ghana in a second, but first we're going to just discuss the exchange rates and what it means to what our Canadian dollar carries across borders. So, as you see in front of you is the breakdown between the currencies of the countries. Argentinian peso is for Argentina, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago dollar, the USD for the US, the cedi for Ghana, and the Indian rupee. Those numbers are intimidating, and I think that it might be a little bit hard to imagine them as numbers. So I've just gone a little bit further, and I've just priced out an example of a can of Coke and what a can of Coke costs abroad. Now, while I was doing these, I realized that it might not be the best example because the can of Coke has many different kinds of reasons for it to be priced lower or higher. Example, population, exportation, taxes. But just as a breakdown, you could see approximately the prices of around the countries. And for example, India is significantly cheaper than Canada, and Barbados might be quite a bit higher. And these prices relate to many different things. For example, food in Barbados is quite expensive, while in India and Argentina, food is quite cheap. Housing in Argentina is also very affordable, but transportation or flights around Argentina might not be. So the cost of living, like we were talking about, does vary, and the four cheapest ones from our list were Argentina, Trinidad, Ghana, and India, as they are quite significantly cheaper than Canada. Barbados has a higher living cost but lower rent, while the US is generally higher. That's to do with the Canadian dollar being slightly low. But most students say that they spend about 1.5 of the Guelph tuition cost while they go abroad. So we're just going to get an example from Samantha and see what she has to say about living in Ghana and how the prices were there.
So my rent while I was in Ghana was, I lived in residence while I was there, which was like recommended. A majority of the international students were in residence in the one international student hostel, and it was about the same as my rent that I pay to like live in a student house in Guelph. So that was good, but I'd say like less expensive than residence at Guelph. But like food was insanely cheap. There was a little market right beside our residence, and there was like prepared food there. So I'd say for breakfast you'd pay like 50 cents for a meal. For lunch and dinner it'd be like $1 to $2. And even like usually, you know how it's cheaper to like buy your own food and then prepare it. That's not really the case there. It's like equivalent price or possibly even more if you were to like go buy all the separate ingredients. But you did have like access to a kitchen and everything that was possible if you wanted to, which we did do. Sometimes getting around, like traveling like a bus ticket or something was also quite cheap there. It was a bit of a different bus system than we would have in Canada, but probably if you were on a bus for like 7 or 8 hours, it would only be like 7 or 10 Canadian dollars to get there. So once again, like a lot cheaper. My flight to and from Ghana was I'd say like 1,000 each way on
Yeah.
average. So like that was like my main expenses. But if I needed like if I needed new clothes or whatever, and we went to the mall, like it was way cheaper there. Food was way cheaper. My phone plan, you also just like would buy data like as you went, kind of, when it was on a scratch card. So I'd say you probably only spent like $15 a month on your phone plan compared to a lot more in Canada. Just trying to think. I think that covers all the bases for things you might spend money on.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting because depending on where you go, like most students do say something similar where they say that depending on how on what your expenses are and what you're looking to get out of your exchange, you can be as economical as you want or spend as much money. But one of the big costs of going on exchange is the flight, so that is something to budget for.
One other thing I can say. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Also, you have to pay for like visas and stuff, and like we did travel within Africa, and like even getting into Ghana, and I would say that's an expensive expense. And even staying in hotels like Airbnbs, the nicest one we stayed, the most I paid ever was like $20 Canadian a night, and we did that like twice through our whole trip. But we traveled almost every weekend, and I'd say like you spend the same amount of money that you would in Guelph, but you got to do way more exciting things.
Great.
I'm good.
Oh, great. We'll touch on more experiences at the end because I definitely want to hear some of your stories. So another thing to consider when you are going abroad is the credit systems. So they are quite intimidating as they do vary from country to country and school to school. But if you do go onto our CIP website, you can search through and have a better understanding by going into the school websites themselves and finding out what they consider a credit and what Guelph considers that a credit as well. So the average semesters do vary as well, and that the timing might affect some programs, and it might affect if you're interested in doing a summer program or something like that, it might interfere. But usually the first semester, which is fall, is between August to December, and then the second semester, which is our winter, is usually between sometime in January or February till May and March. But again, that also differs from country to country. So how do you find out about the programs and how can you see what's best for you? So luckily, we've done our job to do it as easy as possible for you. And if you go on the Study Abroad program search, and the link is in the Q&A, you can click on the Study Abroad program, and that will take you to the next page, which will have a filter that you can assign what's interesting to you. So whether you're interested in studying in a specific language or the semester of study that you're interested in, as well as regions, they can all be filtered through. So once you've clicked on, once you've chosen a semester and a region or a school or your field of study, you can then click on a school and it will take you to this page, which will have the semester times in the yellow under the map, and it will have the credit system right under that. So where it says ECTS, that's the credit system from the university that I went to. And what they considered a full semester was 30 ECTS credits. And credits are not weighed the same. So I had some classes that weighed 2 credits and some classes that weighed 6 credits. And I had to do that planning to make sure that by the end of my semester, everything lined up together. On the right of this page, you have the durations of the semesters and the time available, as well as the languages of instructions. And I would double check when you're picking the courses, because you don't have to take German at Boku. So that's something that you can work around. And then the courses that are offered at the university. So now I'm just going to discuss some of the universities. In Argentina, the partner would be the Universidad de San Andreas, which is just on the very, very coast of Buenos Aires. And it is in an amazing location, which puts you right in the city center of one of South America's largest cities. In Barbados, it's the university is University of the West Indies, which is actually a collection of universities that are also same university in Trinidad, as in the Barbados, except it's a different campus, and thus there might be some differences in costs and differences in program selection and housing and stuff. Trinidad, it's also the University of the West Indies, the St. Augustine campus. And in the US, it is the Mississippi State University, which is a huge state school, and it's in a great location. So in the US, you're also exposed to quite a big amount of culture. In Ghana, there's the University of Ghana, which is also in the capital city, I believe, and we'll have Samantha touch up on that. And then in India, there's quite a few schools. You have to see what works for you, as well as the Ontario Indian Student Exchange Program, which is essentially a program that has some scholarships that may be offered, and you can talk to our program counselors and see if that's something that is available, as well as there's a skew of different disciplines throughout all the universities and locations. So if you know that you want to be in the South, you might be interested in going to Shiv Nada University, or if you know you want to be in the North, then you can go to the Indian Institute of Tech. And we're going to get Samantha's perspective on going to school in Ghana, learning a new kind of subject, and what's it like living and traveling abroad. So I have some questions put up for you, and I'm just going to leave it on this page for our viewers. And I was wondering, a lot of new students who are coming, a lot of students who are going on exchange have this decision to make. And how did you make this decision to study abroad? Oh, you're muted there, Samantha.
Sorry. I think that definitely, like, last year, or I guess I was in second year, they had a lot of events that are virtually occurring this year, which are amazing, because if those events weren't occurring, then I wouldn't have ended up in Ghana. I originally was looking at Australia, but I was just walking through the UC, and I talked to some girls who had been to Australia before, and then I saw that there was like one place in Africa you could go, and kind of just on a whim, I went and talked to the girl who had been there in the past, and she just had nothing but amazing things to say about Ghana. So I walked away and I was like, I'm going to go to Ghana next year. And it was just the best decision ever. I was ready to like take a jump kind of and experience something completely different culturally, which Ghana definitely provided for me. But there's definitely places that you could go where it would be like you would still experience some culture shock, I'd say, but it would still be like a easier transition in compared to Canada.
And have you traveled alone before, or traveled at all?
Not really. I had been to like resorts in the Caribbean, I guess, and been on a cruise, but I had never just flown across the country by myself. I hadn't been to Europe before, so it was a bit of a big jump, but it did turn out okay. I did have some culture shock when I first arrived for a bit, but I think that had to do with like the lack of travel before. A lot of the other students I'd been to before had been to other developing countries or traveled alone, so they were like a little bit of a step ahead. But if you just had an open mind, then it helped with the transition in to the new culture.
What are some resources that helped you get assimilated to the new culture?
At the university, they really held our hand at the start of everything. Everything is different there. So things like transportation, buying things at the market. It was called I forget what it's called in Ghana, but it was like CIP, but with the University of Ghana, and they had lots of workshops. There was like, we arrived, I think, like 2 weeks before classes actually started, so they could just like all the logistical things could be sorted out, but even they had like tutorials, like they would take us to the market and practice bartering for just like goods and stuff, which is something that we don't do in Canada, but is like a very important part of life there. So they helped with that. Transportation, instead of a bus with that like tells you where it's going, like 99 South, they don't have that there. It's called a trotro. So it's a person leaning out the window, yelling a destination, and you need to know that I need to get onto that trotro, sit on it for this many stops. This is the price. So that was another thing where like they took us in smaller groups with other international students, and they showed you how to use that so you could get around the city more independently rather than they had like different Ubers or versions of Uber, but this was more of like a public transportation, and it was like cheaper, so we would opt for that more often. And at the start, you like met people who had been there for a few months, and you heard of them like going like 8 hours away with chocho, and you're like, how did they do that? But you just learn to eventually, and you're like, oh, you eventually turn out like that, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Did you eventually feel like these differences kind of mellowed out? Like, did you adjust to the culture?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably like a pretty tricky 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks probably at the start, but it was still like an enjoyable 3 or 4 weeks, a big learning experience, but it definitely did mellow out. I'd say at the start, even like everyone around you could tell that you were nervous probably, because like, and that kind of like brings more attention to you if you're in a public setting or at the market or something like that. Like, as I was saying before, like the termo brony, like everyone's yelling that at you at the start, but then by the end, when you were like confident, you weren't so overwhelmed by the million things that are happening around you, like everyone just leaves you alone, just like you're any other person, which that's when you knew you settled in, because even the others around you like weren't hyper aware of you.
Were there any stereotypes about Canadians that you had to face? Like, did anything come out?
Yeah, I'd say there was lots of stereotypes about foreigners. I'd say for sure when you there's like a really spicy sauce called like shito that the Ghanaian people like to like put with their rice and different things like that, and they just like knew like everything that like any food that you would order, like they would not give you the spicy version. They would give you like the lowest spice level that was possible, which even at the start you were like kind of dying from, but your spice tolerance definitely builds up. And like when people had like visitors along the way and they would like eat something with you, their mouth would be burning, and then you would be like, oh, I'm okay. So you knew that your like spice tolerance went up. I'd say just about like not knowing where you're going, like things like that. We had people who would like, if you had to switch chochos, they would get off a chocho with you and just like direct you, like walk you like for 5 minutes to the next one, because they were worried you were just going to get lost, even if you did know what you were going. But everyone in the country is like super hospitable, so it was just like they were just being kind was the thing, which was super appreciated. I don't know if there was any other like major stereotypes, I'd say.
Well,
but the spice was like the most prominent one.
Yeah,
I'd
I can
say.
imagine. Yeah. So while you were there, did you, as you said, you did quite a bit of traveling. Can you tell us some stories and about your travels as well?
Yeah,
During your abroad?
for sure. So usually on the weekends we'd go away or take like a long weekend, which I'd say it's like super important to have a schedule that's like pretty flexible, or like a lot of people do pick choice or like pick your classes depending on like when you have to be there. Like you don't want a Friday afternoon class. You know, if you can have a long weekend, you want it so that you and your friends can go away for a longer period of time. And Ghana has like such a vast variety of different types of travels that you can do. So if you like the hustle and bustle of the city and the markets, you can just like stay in the capital where the university is located. Soccer, football in Ghana, which is soccer in Canada, is like really big there. So there was like sporting events, which is like super, if you like sports, then there's lots of things to do with that. Like you showed the Cape Coast Castle. Along the coast, there was like those were originally used for like slaves hundreds of years ago. So there was still like a historical aspect that we got to learn about. We did do like, we would tour the castles and things like that. And it was just like a very like eerie feeling, but something that's like super important to like take the time to go and learn about. And then Kakum National Park is another place where it was nice to like, if you got tired of the hustle and bustle, which it was a lot sometimes, to just get into nature and like you didn't hear any cars honking at you or anything, just to quiet down. There's also like some really good surfing that we did. Just like all on weekend trips. We flew up to the north on our like reading break, and we went on a safari, so seeing like elephants, warthogs.
Wow.
It's whatever the African version of like a deer is.
A zebra?
No, it actually is a deer. What else? Like monkeys, like a kudu, maybe it's a kudu. Even like baboons and things like that. When we were up, we even have this video of like one of the girls went back to her room when we were staying. It's called Mole National Park, and she went back to the room, and there's like, the monkeys are very smart and they watch humans in the time, or like go into the rooms all the time. So it just will go and like, it's just a baboon running between doors, like checking the door to see if it was unlocked so they could get into the room, and then like moving on to the next one and the next one. Wow. But so yeah, just like things like that, you're like, oh, that actually happens. Like people say, oh, monkeys are smart, but no, they're actually smarter.
And I hear they steal from you as well sometimes.
Yes, they will. They didn't get like super up close to us, but I think like if they got into your room, they could find food and things like that, which was important to like not leave out. I'm trying to think. There was also, even just like things that you wouldn't ever experience in Canada. Like they have like complete villages of like hundreds of people that are just like all built on a lake. So it's like all of their houses, everything, it's kind of just like built up on stilts, which is like super interesting to experiencing something that you would not see in Canada.
Interesting. And when you're saying we, did you travel with friends? How was your social circle there?
Yeah, so mostly I traveled with other international students. It's hard because like right now, while I'm in Guelph, it's not like I'm like traveling every weekend. Like when you're a student in your country, like you're very focused on education. And in Ghana, it was like a big, amazing opportunity for you to be able to get an education at the university level, and like you really needed to focus and like for your family, like your family put a lot into you to send you away to university. So we weren't traveling with other Ghanaian students, but I ended up traveling with, oddly enough, a lot of other Canadians, and then a girl from Germany and a guy from Austria. We'd go like sometimes just like two of us, or like the biggest group I'd say we go with was like 6 people. And yeah, when you find your people that you like click with, you have to like take advantage of it and just keep traveling with them. Like if you love nice things and your friends, people you make friends with, only want to like eat street food and sleep in the cheapest places, like you're not going to get the same thing out of the experience. So it's good to like, there was a group of people that did like sleep in nicer places and eat nicer food, but there's a group of people that got to see way more things and eat street food and things like that, but like everyone still equally enjoyed it.
So it sounds like there was quite a bit of exchange students there.
Yeah, there was lots of us. There was a lot of programs that like connected with different schools in the States, but they kind of like stayed to themselves more. Like the way Guelph does it, we got to like take the University of Ghana's courses, whereas like the other programs were just like taking classes with only other American students. But I was with like integrated right into the Ghanaian classes, and I'd be like the only foreigner in a lot of my classes, or just like 1 or 2 of my other friends would be in it. So it was nice to be like completely integrated. But we did all live in like the international student hostel. So it was either kids on exchange or just students from other parts of Africa.
All right, interesting. And does the university help you make these connections? Like, did you find the housing through the university, and did you find your friends through that as well?
Yeah. So I didn't know if it was through Guelph or through the University of Ghana, but it's highly, highly recommended to stay on campus. It's like the capital, Accra. It's like insane traffic. So you would not want to be like trying to get to school in the morning on a trotro or something. You'd want to be like, so it was better just to be right on campus. Then you could like walk. The 20 minutes was the farthest to like get to all of your classes. And it's not like Guelph where there's like a lot of choices. It was just like a double room. Everyone's in a double room. I think a few people were in single rooms. You just had to pay a little bit more for that. But it was nice because you like showed up and I instantly had a friend. My roommate was from Sweden. And on that first day, just things like going to the market for the first time to get food and sheets and pillows, things like that, like is obviously very overwhelming by yourself. But kind of like we were all encouraged to show up within like 3 days of each other. So then like you would notice more people coming in. We also had a group chat that was started by the University of Ghana like for us. So we could just like, if someone was going to play Frisbee, we would send a message or go to the pool, and then people would meet up. And then there was a lot of orientation activities. We had one night where they took us to a pub for like live music, and there was like they took us on a bus with all the international students, like 25, 30 of us, I'd say. So we all got to know each other there. We went to Labadee Beach in the first week, and just like other little things like that. And just orientation, we had to be together and learn all the logistical things. So we eventually all just started hanging out more often, like by choice.
Yeah, sounds like you had a lot of fun. It was very interesting for you. But yes, outside of the fun, how's education there? Like, how's it taking courses outside of Guelph?
At the start, it was quite a transition. Like even course selection wasn't like in Guelph. It's not like we log onto a computer, you type in the codes you want. It was like you had to walk around on campus to all the different departments, and there was a list of the courses offered this semester, and their time would be released like 5 days later, and then you went and entered all of the options that you possibly wanted to take, and then you got to see if they lined up when they released the times, which was obviously quite a different start than in Guelph. And that was what like all the students in the university were doing. That wasn't just like international students, whereas in Guelph it's like 5 months in advance, you know exactly what's happening. So that was like the first hard transition. But it was the same. Each course I took was a 2-hour course where you just showed up once a week. And then it would be 30% of your grade would be coursework and 70% was exams. So that was obviously like more pressure than a Guelph exam, I'd say. We had some group work. Like I had a seminar for one of my classes, and that's where like group work would occur. It was actually nice. Instead of being in like a classroom, we were outside on benches, which was like kind of nice actually, and like a different setting than what we're used to for like an educational setting. But yeah, we got to take like a variety of courses. I saved up all my electives, which I would totally recommend, because you don't want to be stressing if it's a required course and you need to like know a specific amount of things to come back to take another course next year. But I do know some people that like were taking only required courses and like still got to learn everything they needed to know. At the start, with the language barrier, I'd say English was the language that everything was taught in, but a lot of people were used to speaking the local language. So when they spoke English, at least to me, it sounded like they had an accent, whereas I had an accent to them. And I just remember being like 4 or 5 weeks into class, and I answered a question, and it was in an anatomy class, so it sounded exactly like how I would say it here, and everyone in the class just turned and stared at me, and I was like, oh. And the prof just looked at everyone and he said, it's okay. She has troubles understanding you guys sometimes too. And I didn't realize until like that far in that everyone had troubles understanding me. But you eventually just, I think that had to do with I hadn't traveled a lot before, so I hadn't learned to like listen through an accent yet. But then it was just as easy as taking school in Guelph.
Yeah, I think it's important for people who are interested in going abroad to know that abroad isn't just about studying, about traveling, but also being exposed to a whole skew of courses that you might not necessarily be exposed to here. So I think it's a great opportunity, because I know I did a bunch of interesting courses that I would have never done here.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
And even just the way things are run, like after a midterm one time, the one prof, he just let us like at the next class have like half an hour for like grievances on the midterm. I'm like, this would not happen in Canada. But
Yeah. So now reflecting back on your entire exchange, what are some things that you took away and brought back with you here?
I think a major thing I brought back was the pace of life. I'd say here in Southern Ontario, we're go, 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 and I'm bad because I've jumped back into the rat race again, but just going to another country where like that was one of the major transitions, is like not everything is like at 9 a.m. you do this and at 10 a.m. you do this. It's like the bus shows up when the bus wants to show up and it leaves when it wants to. And if you want to like sometimes in Canada when someone says like, how are you? They just want you to say good. So then you can also say good back and then you can go on with your day, where it's like they want to know like how your day was. When they ask you a question, they want to like sit down and hear about it, which is like kind of refreshing and nice to like go back to like a slower pace of life, I'd say. And just it gives you more time to learn about the culture and talk to new people and enjoy a meal with someone and learn about all the different foods and like just every aspect of another person's life, rather than here while we're like always in the rat race, I find.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's not just about the learning as well, like I said, but also culturally you do kind of pick up and learning, like living and experiencing something is not like traveling. It's a different kind of experience.
Yeah, I
Living
think
there,
that from exchange, what you learn not from a book is just as important what you learn like in the classroom, I'd say.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll thank you for your time, because I think it was a great discussion. You had some amazing points and very interesting stories. And I'm just going to end it here and just let you guys know that if you're interested in studying abroad, there's a few steps to take, and there's the info session that you need to attend, and you can email CIP about that. Applications open in December. Pick your top 5 choices. We'll try to do the CIP staff will try to do their very best, but most people get up something that they're interested in. So it's due January 29th, 2021 for the summer. So you do still have some time, and things are a little bit different now due to COVID. However, we are going through with the application process and hope that things do get better, and we will see how it goes from there. So we ask you to continue with the application process, and we will continue to monitor the situation from the Government of Canada, the UOG, Student Board, the Perspectives, and of course with student safety in mind. And it is our priority, if something does get canceled or postponed, then we'll definitely make sure everybody's aware of this. There's more COVID facts on the website, so please feel free to go on there. The link is right there on your screen. And so you can also view all the regions that we've covered so far in the last couple of weeks on the region websites as well. And we hope to see you soon, and we hope that you do take advantage of this wonderful program and go abroad and experience life outside of Guelph. And thank you for your time, and thank you again, Samantha.
Thank you.